Altered's next set is just around the corner. Whether you're hopeful to be done with the Sigismar meta or just happy to get out of the cold, it's time to celebrate. There's plenty of new possibilities and mysteries to be explored in Whispers from the Maze. With a boatload of new mechanics and keywords, there's plenty of power to be harnessed by those who are up for the challenge. Can you handle the secrets lost in the depths of the maze? Or are some things really better left in the dark? Only time will tell. But while we wait, it's time for another card reveal. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. I'm so excited for Altered's third set, and I can't wait to share a special piece of it with you. Meet Fiore de Liberi, a powerful noble soldier. If I'm boosted, I'm eternal. And on play, I gain 1 boost per other character in my expedition, then send them all to reserve. At night, I lose 1 boost. Wow, Ordis is getting a 4-cost Hydracaena, and I'm pretty excited about it. I wasn't expecting to see Eternal on a low-cost card like this, but I think that the team's done a really good job of balancing this. In order for it to stick around, you're going to have to send a lot of characters to the reserve that first day, which means you're going to have to commit a lot more than just 4 mana to really set this character up. On the future days, it won't grow like the Hydra, it actually shrinks, but if you started out big enough, you'll still have a powerful body sticking around. If you compare some cards with this that boost it after it's played, you can make it stick around even longer. Things like Charge and Nurture can be really good, and while the Sandman does give boosts, I don't actually think it has that much synergy with this card because it can naturally stick around on its own, so you don't really need the sleep, and by the time it wakes up the next day, you're already losing some of the boosts. But I'm sure with a card like this in the set, they're going to be giving us some more things to synergize with it, and we've already seen one of those cards, the Town Square. At dusk, I get a morale counter for each character you control, and then later you can spend some of those counters to have characters in target expedition gain a boost. For the rare, you can even have all the characters you control gain boosts. I feel like the Town Square works naturally with this card because you'll have an extra character every dusk to build up those counters faster, and then as you get those boosts, you'll be able to have this stick around even longer. A couple other honorable mentions, I think something like Jean could work alright to set up multiple tokens, but I feel like at that point you're going to have a tempo loss 2 days in a row, so I don't think it's that worth it. Similarly, the Monolith can boost up this character, but since you're also going to be sending to reserve characters that were boosted at this point, I feel like it's going to be more of a cost than a benefit at that point to play this, and you could pair this with Isatok, and if you made this like big enough and Eternal, force your opponent to play onto that side. But I think by the time you play the Isatok, you're not actually going to have enough stats to really be ahead. So yeah, all of these like seem like they might work in theory, but I don't think they're going to be that realistic. But there are some other cards I need to mention that are going to work really well with this. I think anything that has a support ability that either gives a boost or summons a token will work really well here. Not only will it let your character stick around for 1 more day, but it'll have an additional boost every day that it's in the expeditions. And of course, token generators were made for this card. I feel like Sigismar is the natural home for it. You'll already have a free character that you can send to reserve with this to build it up and have it stick around longer. There is a little bit of anti-synergy where now this is going to be sticking around in the expedition that your token is summoned in if you play it to the hero side. And so it'd probably be a little more powerful if you could like put pressure in both lanes, but either way, having a big Eternal character is no joke. Things like Cadets where you can get 2 bodies for 2 mana, anything where it's like you're getting at least 1 body per mana, I think will work well with this card. And Ordis Overseer could go crazy with this card. If you can get 2 to 3 tokens out of that, then you'll be left with a really buffed up Eternal follower. I'm not sure if it's the best way to play Waru, but it would be a lot of fun. You might get more value out of just sleeping some bureaucrats with powerful effects, but you really have a ton of potential with multiple bureaucrats already in play to start the day and an overseer just churning out the tokens to make a crazy strong Fiore de Liberi. But to see just how good this is, I think we need to take a closer look at the stats. If you play this card and it gets no boost, or even if it does get boosted, on the first day, I always think it's going to be worth an additional 1 worth of stats. Let's just assume all the characters you're removing are 1/1/1s. So the first day, even if it gets boost, since you're getting rid of a character with equal strength, you're only going to be adding 1 worth of power to the expeditions. If you have 1 token in play, now you're getting that 1 worth of power the first day, and then when it loses the boost the second day, you still have a 1/1/1 sticking around, which means you're getting a total of 2 value. Now, if you have 2 tokens, you'll get that 1 the first day, then 2 the second day, and then 1 on the last day before it goes to the reserve. That's 4. If you have 3 tokens, you're going to get 1 worth of value that first day, and then the next day after it loses a boost, you'll still have a 3/3/3, then a 2/2/2, and a 1/1/1. That's a total of 7 worth of value. If you can get rid of 4 tokens or equivalent cheap characters, you're going to get a massive 11 worth of value. And then if you somehow manage to have 5 characters and tokens in your expedition, you could be getting 16 worth of value over the life of this card. I really think that 5 is pushing it. I could maybe see getting 4 if you somehow have like Sigismar, you play a cadet, and then maybe you had like a support ability or something as well. But yeah, 5 seems pretty crazy. Also, the longer this sticks around, depending on what stage of the game you're in, you might not actually see those later days and some of that value. So I think that realistically, the earliest you could play this with removing 3 characters, it'll probably only stick around for around 3 days at that point. That's probably like you play it with 6 mana, then you have it that day, you have it on 7 mana and 8 mana, and then the game ends. So yeah, I think you're only getting around 6 worth of value from this if you're actually playing it and removing 3 things. Similarly, I think that you'll only get around 8 worth of value if you play it and take 4 things out. Even if you did that on your 6 mana day as well somehow, you're just only going to see about 3 more days. Even on the really high, like 5 characters being removed situations, I don't know how much value you'll actually be able to get, especially if you have to set up 5 characters and that means this is only sticking around for like 2 days before the game ends. You might only get around like 6 worth of value, or if you were crazy and somehow got it earlier, maybe 10. You could maybe argue that even just taking out 2 things and having 4 worth of value for a 4-cost card is good. I think that's a little below average, but it is split over multiple days, which might have some benefit, especially if your opponent makes like a super weak play and you want to bank some advantage. But I really think you're going to need to get at least 3 boosts and have like around the 6 worth of value for this to start to be worth it at all. Now let's take a look though at the rare. The math's going to shift around. This now is 3 costs from hand and reserve and everything else is the same. All of a sudden, you can probably pull off some of these combos we were talking about 1 day earlier because you can play an extra 1-drop. You could also now have this stick around potentially for 1 extra day as well. And so I think that the math starts to look a little better. You're paying less for it and getting more out of it. I could really easily see here, even just getting 4 worth of value out of this, removing 2 things, all of a sudden that might start to be super worth it. You're going to be able to have that across multiple days and it's already kind of breaking even for the cost. Anything above that, and that's just extra value. I think still for like taking out 4 characters and 5 characters, we probably need to subtract a little bit from what we're getting to kind of reflect that we won't see that many days of the game. But all of these from like 3 and above just look amazing to me. But what about the out of faction version? Well, that one does not disappoint either. It's going to be for Bravos, or should I say it's going to be for Basira. Boost, a natural home here. I think it makes sense. Everything here is virtually identical to the common. But now, I don't even think we have to worry about sending characters to reserve because there are so many ways to boost this after it's played or with support abilities that we can make it really strong without even having to take out our board. I feel like Isenboshi and Haven Warrior and other cards like this that you can set up day 1 will make this a viable play as early as the 2nd day of the game. If you get 1 boost from a support ability and then another from Basira, you've played a 3/3/3, and while that isn't amazing for 4 mana, if you're going second or something and you can like dodge your opponent and go to the other side, now you might even be able to trade while also setting up this eternal character. And since it's super easy to continually boost this throughout the rest of the game, even if it's not super strong the next day, just a 2/2/2, it'll only grow from there on out. If we just assume that this is never going to the reserve, basically anything you do to boost this will be giving you that much worth of stats for every day for the rest of the game. I could see people maybe even considering something like the rare Atlas now because the extra boost will go a lot farther. But if you're not trying to play this until 6, there's also a lot of other different options where you don't even need support abilities. You could just lead out with this and then follow it up with the physical training. A boost from Basira means that you're going to have a 5/5/5 Eternal character on 6 mana. In Tasia, that's the same stats that Hydra has when it comes into play, but you can get it 1 day earlier and maybe even earlier because of the ramp that Bravos has access to. Or you could pair it with some other powerful boost cards like the Fire Rabbit to set it up on day 5, or Arcolano Milk on any day of the game. And if you can maintain the Eternal status of this card, you're not even going to be worried about the fleeting. I'm sure there are some goofy decks to come that might even go all in on boosting this card and then use something like Eat Me Energy Bar to just try and take both expeditions. This is such a crazy family of cards, and the brainstorming's gotten me really excited for the next set. That being said, I have to admit that there are some weaknesses. I feel like this card is honestly kind of similar to Lyra Festival in my mind, where you want to like set up a couple of characters and then follow it up with this expensive 3 or 4 cost power play that you'll basically try and use as an alternate win condition. But unlike Lyra Festival, it won't win you the game immediately if you pull it off, and it's still just as susceptible to removal. Even in the first 2 sets, we've seen a lot of cards that can trade favorably into this. And even if your opponent uses a 4 cost removal on this, if you've committed your hero power and boost and other tokens and characters into setting this up, they're always going to be trading favorably into you. And even with just a couple cards spoiled so far for the set, we've already seen some huge threats that are going to make playing this difficult. But I definitely haven't lost hope. If there's not a lot of removal in the meta, this could definitely be a powerhouse. And with the right uniques, you might be able to set up a ton of boosts on this pretty easily. Also, there could be some pretty insane unique versions of this card. I'm not really sure how they're going to go with it yet, but if you find a way to play this where it's less of a tempo loss early, or maybe it can get some additional boosts on play, that could be insane. Also, they could do a lot of other really interesting things with this. Depending on what they decide is the identity of this card, if it's the Eternal or if it's the fact that it sends other cards to reserve for an effect, you could really have a lot of options. Maybe they'll get rid of the Eternal from a lot of the unique versions, and instead it'll just do something else super powerful at the cost of sending some of your cards to reserve. It could be really cool to see a version of this card that says something like, send all characters in my expedition to the reserve, and then draw a card for each. But even just simple effects for the unique version, like this card generating a token on play or having a hand cost of 1 less, will be really powerful. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of this trio? Which ones do you think will see play, and what decks are you going to cook up with this card? Thanks to anyone who stuck around this long. As a special thanks, I want to show you another card from the upcoming set that works perfectly with my reveal. I saw this recently and I knew I had to add it to my video. Aegis Templar is a 3 cost from hand and reserve, 2/2/3 for the stat line, and it has Scout 1, which lets you play it from your hand for 1 and then it's sent to reserve, which isn't a problem at all because it has the ability, when I leave the expedition zone, create an Ortis 1/1 in my expedition. That's another cheap way to get a body, but you can also just play this out for the full cost, and then when it summons a token at the end of the day, you'll be starting your next day with more characters before you've even spent any mana. And you might be thinking, alright, that's fine, but it's just going to be an extra 1 boost. Well, the rare gets even crazier. Sadly, the image quality is a little poor, but I hope you can make it out. Now this has Scout 2, and when I leave the expedition zone, create 2 Ortis 1/1 soldier tokens in my expedition. These cards are going to go absolutely crazy together. If you play the rare Templar out on the first day, you'll have 2 tokens sticking around. Heading into day 2, you can start things off with another 1 cost character, and then top it all off with the rare Fiore de Liberi. With that combo, you can have an Eternal 4/4/4 as early as day 2, or a 5/5/5 in Sigismar. I honestly can't wait to see what other crazy cards they print to pair with this. And before I end this video, I've got to give a special thanks to Equinox for hooking me up with such an awesome card reveal. Between the announcement of the World Championship and the card spoilers, the future couldn't be brighter. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next video.